familiar faces, a few new faces. For the new faces, my name is Saman. Myself and my colleague Amit and Yuvraj, we are from Game of Life, and you guys welcomed us into the GCS&MAI fraternity in July of this year, and as we had intended and promised, the idea is to aid the greenkeepers. I still remember they are the unsung heroes of the golfing world. I think all the players come, enjoy the greens, go back, and I can say with a certain degree of honesty that maybe, I don't know the exact number, but 60, 70, 80% of the people don't really know what goes behind keeping the course in the shape that it is, and what leads to the game that they really enjoy and are passionate about. We had met in July, and then we also attended the Noida seminar. And as we had said last time, the theme that we have fraternity is sustain, which is the sustainable upkeep for superior turf and irrigation needs. And that is the theme that we are going to work with across the country. The idea is to build a platform where we can get experts from all facets, whether it is irrigation, whether it is agronomy, turf keeping, all these facets. We bring thought leaders, industry leaders, and how we can benefit from this association and increase the level of outcome and the level of upkeep of the golf courses in India. It is in that context I'm very happy and privileged to welcome Sam, and I'm sure you will get to know more about him and what does he do in the next 30-40 minutes. But to do justice, I would request Vijay to please come and formally welcome Sam, and then we can request Sam to take us through a small presentation that he's put together for us.
Thanks, Aman. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking out the time to be here and support this initiative. So, like someone said, Sam Thomas is an authority on sustainable development. He is the development director for GEO, a foundation based out of Scotland, and he's been kind enough to spare some time on his travels to Asia and spare this time for us to educate us on what we should be looking at, how sustainability affects us, and what we should be doing, how this correlates to golf and golf development. Sam and I have known each other for 20 years. We went to the same college in Scotland, and so he has over 20 years of experience in golf, over 18 years experience with Geo, if I'm not mistaken. So over to Sam. Thank you.
Thanks, Vijay. Thanks for you and Aaron for setting up the evening tonight. I could actually spend 30 minutes telling you stories about Vijay and his time in Scotland and drinking beer, but I won't do that.
Just half an hour.
But we'll do that after then. No, it's really a pleasure to be able to take the chance to stop in and be able to support you guys, and also Game for Life for the partnership and the momentum that they're trying to create in India, and I think that has a ripple effect right across Asia in terms of looking around. You look at your neighbours and see what they're doing, and I think we need individuals and organisations like that to be able to be brave. No one likes to be the first one to step forward like that, and I think it's really commendable to see that happening now in this part of the world, because you have such a rich golfing history in this country, and I think we want to be able to build a rich future for the game in this country, and I think that's something that should inspire us to think actually we can do better, and we can build a better future for the juniors and the golfers of the next
generation. Keep the mic a little closer.
A little closer. How's that? Good. So I've got a few slides, probably more than I should, so I'm just going to sort of go through some of them a little quicker, and then I'll try and slow down another. So what I want to do, just click thing it down. What I want to do is just try to give a little bit of perspective on sustainability in general, what's happening in the world, what are the pressures that we're seeing, how is that affecting golf. I'll talk a little bit about what we do. What we do as Irrigation as a non-profit, some of the ways then in which you guys can go back to your clubs and courses and members and try to get something started at your own facilities, and then some examples of others in Asia that have started to do some of those things. So that's a little bit the kind of structure. Shout me if time starts to run out or anything like that, I can speed along. Okay, so in the overview section, we'll talk a little bit about the RNA and the USGA have been bickering quite a lot about this tiny little white ball and how much it affects the game. What we spend most of our time thinking about is the biggest ball in the game, which is the planet. And without the planet functioning and being healthy, it doesn't matter how far the golf ball goes, we are going to run out of things to look after our courses and maintain them. So the biggest ball to us is the planet. We're currently using way more than we need to in terms of resources and use, and there is no backup plan once we run out of this planet, unless Elon Musk comes up with something. So the things that I mean when I say that the planet is under pressure, how that affects us, biodiversity loss is a massive issue. We're losing species at an alarming rate, and we need green spaces like golf courses to protect and to hold on and to celebrate the species that you may find in and around your property. So biodiversity is a big factor that can cause collapse for us. The other piece of the puzzle that everyone should be aware of is water. So the water, everyone probably knows how much you pay at your golf course for a cubic meter of water. And we don't like that pressure growing, and it's only likely to go in that one direction. So we need to be thinking about how careful we are with our water resources. The other piece of the puzzle that's piling up on us at the moment is waste, and the proliferation of plastics and other pieces of packaging that we need in our supply chains, even for golf, to be able to bring things to our course. Packaging reduction, waste reduction, and trying to encourage people to reuse and be clever about our pieces of plastic and waste is hugely important. The other thing that every city now in the world is feeling, and you guys feel it in this part of the world too, is how unhealthy it can be in certain times of the year when the air pollution gets high. And so we seek refuge in places where we have trees and green space, and we need to be able to create more of those open spaces that everyone can access and benefit from. So these are some of the things that we're seeing happening. What it's resulting in is an increase in costs. So you might not be feeling it yet, but certainly we are in Europe feeling the increased cost of electricity provision, diesel fuel for mowers, vehicles around the site, and also the cost of fertilizer and other things are starting to creep up. Those are all just pressures on the system of the natural resources that are driving us to try to be creative about using other sources of fuel, using other sources of fertilizer, trying to be clever to reduce those costs. So what is the response to these kind of horrible things that are happening to us and the planet is kind of bringing towards us? We've tried to sort of evolve our thinking a bit, and I put this slide in because a long way back, maybe in the 80s, we had this idea that the environment, society, the economy were these three separate things that happened apart. And over the years, we've started to find that there are some overlaps. We rely on each separate piece to be successful. And then today, there's very much the model in modern business where if we're struggling with our environmental conditions around us, if we're trying to push water uphill, then our business is going to struggle and the people are not going to be happy. So this model of how the environment actually wraps and sits around the business side of things and how people function is very much the way that governments and businesses are starting to think. And anyone that hasn't seen this graphic before, this is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So this is more or less what governments are telling businesses and each other. What is sustainability? That is kind of what people around the world are now agreeing is sustainability, the various different pieces of education, health of our waters, equality, energy, circular reuse of waste. All these pieces are forming in that. And there's a global target which almost every country, apart from 3 or 4, who we won't talk about, have committed to this reduction in emissions by 2030, including India. So there's a government pressure that's coming, and they may kick it down the road, but eventually it's going to start to pile up to inform how they finance and regulate and control the way that we do business. And we're starting to see other sports doing this as well, which kind of agitates golf a little bit, because I think we have so much more of an opportunity in our sport compared to some of the other initiatives that we put out there, like NHL Green, okay? An ice hockey rink, to me, has so much less potential to say that it's part of nature, that it's giving time for people outdoors than golf does. And we desperately don't want golf to be left behind by these other sports. And it's not, you know, we've been doing this now, like Richard said, for about 18 years. The RNA have got their Green Links initiative, which runs around the Open Championship, and it's using those windows into the public to showcase what golf can do. But other sports are doing it as well, so we don't want to sit back and just watch. We like to be at the front and lead in that race if we can. So what are the challenges and opportunities for golf? Some of the ways that we're already seeing those sort of doomsday scenarios playing out in golf, if you like, is extreme, well not extreme, but unpredictable weather events that are happening. And I think I've even talked to the last couple of days to people here about heavier rainfall than we've normally seen, later monsoon season than you normally get, and it's starting to create headaches for our greenkeepers and our golfers. And so you get closure, unexpected flooding that might happen that didn't used to happen. In Scotland, we're seeing courses washed into the sea. This coastal erosion and the sea level rise is definitely a headache for certain clubs, or even tournaments stopping because the heat is so strong. And probably tennis is a more visible one. If you guys have watched the Australian Open, for example, they've had to stop that play a number of times because the heat is getting too much for the players to perform. So it isn't just like an imagination thing that's happening. These are impacting our sports events right now, so we need to stand up and do something. What we don't like is the public perception of golf around this issue. The image on the left, unfortunately, has been used a number of times and even sent to us in emails to show us why golf doesn't care. It's a picture of a burning forest in Canada, and golfers sort of being more concerned about his 8-foot putt than he is about the burning forest that's behind it. I mean, I get it, you don't want to miss the putt, but there's so much more going on in the world than what's happening on the green, and I think that we do not want people to think that golf just carries on and ignores the problems that it's having to face. And in France, one of there is actually vandalism, with people coming onto golf courses and damaging the greens and putting concrete into them and stuff to try to just to disrupt and make a protest around these kind of issues, particularly water, which we know about is obviously a sensitive issue. But golf, like I said before, has got massive opportunities. It protects a huge amount of green space. We went to Delhi Golf Club earlier this morning, and it was just a total green oasis in the middle of a very hectic part of the city. And I think it gave you a sense of how we can protect green space. Without that golf club, I'm sure that would just be buildings and roads and what have you. So there's 38,000 courses in the world. We reckon that's about 6 million acres of green space that the golf industry is protecting. So we have a role in that urban planning context. Also biodiversity, this is a Heathland picture, but it gives you the idea that we're actually obviously places where we can play, we can protect these habitats. There's also this thing called ecosystem services, which is mentioned there. That is essentially how people are benefiting from good ecosystems or healthy places. It's a European-wide framework for measuring financially actually how people are benefiting from nature. So and golf has actually a huge potential to really measure that and monetize that as a service that we can give to people. Similar line is also the health and well-being. People can play golf into an old age. They can also play with their grandkids, and it keeps your brain motivated. It keeps you exercising in a way that's easy and accessible for all. There's a lot of research now. The RNA have got a good project on the go at the minute looking at the health and well-being benefits of golf. So it's a story that we have. The other piece of it as well is the players. So the PGA Tour pros, the LPGA players, have got a platform and a potential to reach a huge audience, and so we've started to put together some sustainable golf champions, we've called them. And Suzanne Petterson, who this week is occupied captaining the Solheim Cup team, has been one of the more vocal champions that we've got, basically using their platform to make people less scared to talk about sustainability and to show them that you can actually thrive in a more sustainable place. You can actually think forward to the future, and if people see their heroes, Rory McIlroy or whoever, doing that, talking about that, it just starts to break down the barriers of fear around the subject. So very quickly about us, I won't take too long on this one. This is our kind of landing page. Our website is sustainable.golf. Simply the message that we want to put out is that we want a better future for golf, people and the planet, and I think that can be possible. Those three things can work together really well, better than other sports, like I said. And we do that work around a framework that sort of has four themes to it. It's fostering nature, conserving resources, strengthening community, and taking climate action. So those four pieces essentially make up what we would call a sustainable golf framework. It gives a consistent message in those different areas, and I'll go into a bit more about kind of what they mean, but they are closely tied, as I said earlier, to those government goals. So the reason I put that in again is just to remind us that if we don't do things in our industry that actually are connected to other sustainability industries, if we just make up our own rules of what sustainability means and don't tell anyone and do our own thing, no one is really going to care what we're doing. So we're quite conscious to make sure that whatever we're doing, we can map it back to these government policies, the government regulations, so that when they come knocking on the door or they're asking questions about what we're doing, we can speak to them in the language that they understand. And I think that's quite important to make sure we stay relevant to the outside of our industry, and speak outside the bubble is a big part of that. So those UN SDGs again are a framework behind everything that we capture from golf. So just a little bit more of what do we mean, so fostering nature. The way it sort of touches the golf course is in its habitats and the biodiversity and the animals and birds and things that we see around it. A big part of it, which generates a lot of discussion, is turf grass management and the sort of sustainable agronomy side of what we do when we're out there looking after them, reducing our fertilizer use and all such things. And that tags into pollution prevention, which is trying to look after the waterways, lakes, rivers, whatever it is we have around our site, to make sure that we are not polluters. When we talk about resources, that's when we need to think a little bit about the economy or the business side of our operations. So our energy usage, our water usage, the materials and waste that we generate, bulk ordering materials, other kinds of things, ways in which we can always reduce our footprint. It's pretty closely linked to our carbon footprint as well, but that's what we mean by the resource use. We're still good. And then community is sometimes a tricky one. I think it changes a lot in different countries, how we interact with our golfers and also our local community. So this is a picture of a golf course in Sweden, where they've actually got the members of the golf course out there maintaining the ditches and raking the rough to try to clear out their drainage system. Honestly, I don't think you get many countries in the world where the members would come and do that, but you can ask them and try. They're a very proactive group in Scandinavia, so this is one way in which they've given them an insight into kind of what it takes to maintain the golf course. But there's other ways. We're quite fortunate, and it's actually great to be here. I just heard tonight the first public golf course pay and play access in India, and to be able to give access to junior golfers and caddies and others as part of that. We own a big asset of the city's green space, and to find ways in which we can break down the barrier and bring non-golfers onto the property to use the facilities or to see the green space is a big part of trying to push that if we can, and talk about it and communicate about what we do. And then the last one of the four is the climate action piece, which is becoming a bigger and bigger sort of subject area, the carbon emissions, reducing our carbon as far as we can, changing to electric vehicles, solar panels, other kinds of options that we've got, and also the sequestration, which basically means the carbon getting sunk down into the ground, which actually golf courses are pretty good at. Turf grass is a pretty good sequester, as well as the trees that we have around some of our golf courses. So we can measure that and tell you exactly what that number is for your particular property. It's useful in the conversation again with government. So all that kind of framework that I just talked about, collaborated across the golf industry, that is not all our partners, but that's just a selection of the people that have supported us over the years. And there's more to add to that, also outside of golf. So that's golf side. We do a lot of work outside of golf, again, to make sure we stay relevant. They work with the IOC, Green Sports Alliances, other sports, to try to make sure that we stay ahead of other sports, to be honest, but also we can show off what golf is doing, and we are inspiring other sports to do better. To be honest, in those conversations, we are still leading the way, which is good to see. The other one, just to quickly touch on, is this group here called ISEAL Alliance, or ISEAL Code Compliance is what I said there. They are the people that set the standards for these things here, which is the certification labels or marks. So we as a foundation have got 3 certification systems, and that group ISEAL that we had at the top there, they basically check and make sure that we're code compliant with forestry, fisheries, harvesting cotton, jewelry, other kinds of industries that have similar standards for sustainability. So we're in line with that group, and there's criteria that sits behind each one of these certifications. So the first one is for an existing course, which is, I think most of you guys would be in that category. We also work with professional tour events, PGA Tour events, Open Championship, and others at their spectator travel and so on that they do at those events. And then there's golf developments. So there's about 40 of those around the world, looking at the design and construction process. How do we build these courses to the best possible standards that we can? And those certifications have not just been sort of invented by us, but those partners that you just saw input. Every 5 years we renew them. There's chance for everyone in this room, even if you wanted to say what you think should be part of these. It's all compiled in a stakeholder sort of collaboration system to make sure that all views are taken into account, whether it's governments, universities, golf clubs, anyone basically. And our role all the time in this, we often try to describe ourselves as like a caddy. So we are not really the players as a foundation. We're a non-profit group of 20 people in Scotland who work globally, but need players on the ground to be the ones that take the shots. So we can recommend the club, tell you how far it is, give you the context, but you guys sort of have to stand up and hit the shot. So that's our role in this, is really to be the caddy, not the player, and make sure that we get the best success we can out of our game. So I'll just go through and talk a little bit about, if you're an existing course, kind of how do you get started with this, or how do you, what does this all mean for me as a facility? The first thing I kind of like to explain to people is that it does mean that it's good for business if you can try to be sustainable. It actually reflects better on your business. So when we think about fostering nature, it doesn't just mean making sure we've got nice places for butterflies to be, but it also improves the setting for our golf course. I think if we all played golf courses that were lined with buildings and roads and concrete structures, they would be a lot less nice experience, or worse experience for us than if we had a beautiful, healthy, woodland or river setting to play alongside. So more people will play your course, and in turn increase the green fees. Resources is honestly just about trying to save costs, trying to get the most we can out of as little as possible is kind of what we want to do. We don't need to be spending money, then we shouldn't be doing it, because it's just wasting resources. Strengthening the community is a way of basically saying, be friends with your neighbor. Anyone that's lived or had a neighbor that isn't so friendly knows that it's not that much fun and it's hard to get stuff done. And so it's always good to have this strong community around you who actually think, that golf course is kind of helpful to have it there, and it's useful for us, and it has good ways in which we can benefit. That's a better relationship to have. And the carbon or climate action piece is really a call for leadership. That is a global conversation that more and more are having, and I think it's good to be stepping forward and showing leadership and trying to be proud that you've made efforts to reduce emissions, for example. That's not it's a starting point and it's a journey, and I think everyone sort of accepts that now. So what is the kind of pathway to get you from A to B? So we've got like a 6-step kind of roadmap, and maybe we can share these slides after so that we can sort of push it right through. So it starts with showing your commitment. Then you can start to tell people what you're doing. There's a outlet where we can do that. You can review some of the practices, some of the data. You can start to understand a little bit how you're performing, where you're losing money, where you're doing well. There's a certification system for getting recognized, and then it's a continual improvement system. So the important thing to know is that you don't have to be the most great, amazing golf course to start with. It's about getting on the journey and moving forward. So starting the process, there's a sustainable golf pledge, and everyone can go online, sustainable.golf/pledge, and sign the pledge and get the numbers and the momentum, and allow us to talk about not just having 3,000 courses, but let's have 4 or 5 and show the outside world of what golf is doing with this. So you sign the pledge, and you can start to straight away, as soon as you've done that, create these little, what we call sustainable golf highlights. So you can actually put up on your own web page. You'll get a web page given to you when you sign the pledge. You can put your own stories up there. You can tell people a little bit about what you're doing. This is going to play as a little video, which is good. I didn't know that was going to work. It allows you, we've got a bank of about more than 5,000 of these highlights from around the world, from courses about what they're doing in different locations, different topics, and you can start to search it and filter it. It's not as good as Google, but you can filter it by different themes and start to see what people are doing. It gives you a little bit of an idea about some of the things that they've done in different parts of the world. I just think of it like an ideas bank. If I'm a club manager or if I'm a greenkeeper and I want to know what other people are doing around pollution prevention or around community engagement, there is literally hundreds of ideas on this page where they can go and pick and see and scroll and just learn a little bit more. And my point there is that your club can also do that as well now. You can go on for free and start to set those things up yourselves. It just needs an individual, unfortunately. Like someone in the club has to be able to have the time and inclination to set about themselves doing that, and you can get quite a lot of recognition and also a lot of ideas as part of that. So there is a web application or a web page that you can go on, sign that pledge, and get your own profile page like this. It's free to start that process, and that'll put you on what we call the Sustainable Golf Leaderboard. So you create the profile and you've got your pledge. You can get access to those highlights that I just said, and it also gets you a place on the Sustainable Golf Leaderboard, which will give you a little mini page and a little dot. I put India on there, because there is a few clubs out there that have started to do it in India. Not many. None of them are certified yet, but there's a few that have started on the journey, and it just gives them some access to also see who else around them is doing that. So when I mean start on the journey, the web page is more than a web page. It's in its 5th version now. It started off like all good things do with an Excel spreadsheet, and now it's become this kind of application that you can go in and start to log your practices and your key data. So this is a team effort. So within your club, you'll probably know someone that knows more about the kitchen work, someone that knows more about the course, someone that knows more about the clubhouse. You kind of can pool those efforts together, and they can tell you a little bit more about, okay, here are my practices around my golf course water efficiency, and it gives you a starter as suggestions, some of the things you could be doing. And you can just literally go through and click what are the things I'm doing, and it starts to fill out that profile for you. So you can also see what you're not doing and give you a bit of an idea, okay, how can I be slightly more organized and do a few more things. So similarly, there's data as well. So that's where it gets into how much energy you're using, water you're using. There's we've collected over 1 million data points now from the golf world, so we know what benchmarks we have around water use in different regions and different climates, so we can also then spit those back to you. If your data comes to us, we can also give you the sustainability scorecard, and it'll tell you how you fit amongst others in your region. It doesn't name golf clubs, so the data remains anonymous, but it gives you an indication of where you could be doing better and where you're not, and it's got these kind of graphs and things so you can get a little bit more insight. And the sort of slightly clever piece of that as well is like a carbon footprint, so I can also tell you how many tons of carbon you emitted last year, what the top 5 sources of carbon were from your facility, and it starts to allow you to think not only money-wise, if we were high in carbon, it's probably means you're spending too much money in that area, but it also tells you your environmental impact and where you can start to reduce those carbon levels, and you can tell the members, so it gives you these slightly more plain English kind of highlights or little posters that you can tell them, you know, hey members, you know, we've got 63 acres of native woodland out there, we've got, you know, we reduced by 50% the amount of diesel that we used in our machinery last year, so on and so forth. So you can start to communicate back to your members or your committees or whatever, this is what we're doing around the sustainability effort and how we're keeping a track of how we could do better. And then this one is more group reporting, so if you've got more than one course, you can obviously compare between the two courses. The last piece of that process is that certification mark. So it's a great goal for people to aim for. I don't think it's everything. The process of organizing yourselves and finding out your data and working out who's doing what in your organization helps a lot to be more efficient and sort of cost savvy. But it's also nice to celebrate when you make an achievement, and it doesn't mean that these guys are at the end of their journey, but they've got their recognition for taking it this far, for having the systems in place where they know what they're up to. That comes with a marketing guide, so there's social media and press releases and other things that we can help do around that. And it also gives them this forward-looking 3-year plan, so it'll come with an idea about what the sort of next big things are, and it'll give you links to other clubs that had similar issues, so you can start to go and talk to other people in the industry. I think community in golf is a big part of how we get better, and superintendents and greenkeepers talk to each other. So this just makes those connections and shows who did what and those similar challenges for you. So that's a little bit about courses. That's the website again. People can go on. You can set that profile up and sign that pledge, no problem. Very briefly touch on, so that's the main piece of our business, and we're working with about 3,000 golf courses around the world that are doing that, working their way through that system at various different points. We also, as you saw from those 3 certification marks, that there is also a development program, so that really looks at how do we start from day one. This is a picture of a site, the 17th green is flagged. It was the first time that we've been to the site. How do we take something like that, which is a kind of used landscape, and turn it into the same area of the site into a golf course that we can also generate financially, but also time outside of people. There's like another 25 hectares of native landscape that we didn't have before. So we go through that process of going from start to finish with the client. try to get them the best output that we can. And that's just some of the places that we're working with around the world. That's the website. You can go on, and there's plenty more information if there's interest in creating those new courses. And then similarly with tournaments, we do the same sort of thing. We actually think tournaments is probably going to be one of the highest growing areas for sustainability because it's like our shop window. It's where most people watch the game. It has a massive influence, even though it's less than 1% of the golfers in the world who are actually on those tours. It's a place where people come and engage with the sport who might not have done before. So we see it like a shop window. There's plenty of tournaments now, over 50 around the world, including the Open Championship. Waste management is a good marquee event for us in the US. Solheim Cup is doing it this week. So they're all looking at basically spectator travel, reducing our waste impact, raising awareness among the public that come. Some of it's about golf development, trying to get golf clubs in people's hands as well at those events. And there's a sort of step-by-step way in which those tournaments and their suppliers, the people that bring stuff to those tournaments, the carpets, the curtains, the seats, everything. Honestly, it wasn't that good 10 years ago, but it's come a long way. And sponsors are driving a lot of that pressure to do that. So there's also a website, and you guys can sort of check that out. So those are the three sort of pieces of how we engage with the sport. Now, because we want to see some examples, speed along a little bit. So there's a couple of examples in here of golf developments and also but more of existing clubs as well around Asia that are sort of doing some things. So it'll give you a little bit more of an idea of the practical application of some of this stuff. So again, these are just a little sample of some of the golf developments that have gone through the process. There's 13 this year that have completed since 2016. So it's not a huge number, but there's not that many new courses getting built. I'll take an example of this course, which was in Vietnam. Boyana Shores opened in 2020. They have their own web page now on our website, so you can go on and see. You can actually read every report that we did, every data metric that we collected, every target they set, actually how they didn't deliver on a few things and how they had to change in construction. That transparency is a big part of what makes this work, is sharing the journey, and that can make people a bit uncomfortable. But I think as long as everyone does it together and openly, you can sort of get to the end point and show and be proud and show off what you did manage to achieve. And they like I said, regenerated over 23 hectares of land that used to be basically fish farming. So they farm prawns on the land in these plastic tubs. We removed all those sort of old infrastructure and started to create this kind of desert dune landscape that they had on the coastline in Vietnam, central Vietnam. There's a whole sustainability summary report that came with that, and it's got all the details of kind of what happened. So you can go online and sort of see a little bit more about what the golf course achieved. One of the key pieces that they have a challenge with is staffing there. So they actually, as part of the project, built a college alongside the development, and they started to get all the sort of younger people from the communities there into the college, and they taught them how to make a hotel room, how to make the beds, how to serve the food, how to cut the grass, how to do the irrigation. There was a whole training course, and then if they came and they attended, then there was a guaranteed job for them at the resort at the end of the sort of 3-year process that they went. That was a huge sort of upskill effort by the team, and it helped staff retention massively. Those staff still work there now. Not all of them, that's not possible, but a lot of them who were there in construction now are there as part of the course management team or even serving in the clubhouse. So they have a real connection, and they were from that part of Vietnam, and they've stayed there rather than migrating out to other places. So those kind of initiatives are the people stories that I think make it a lot more worth it. Although I like birds and bees, the people stories of training people up and giving people a chance in life that wouldn't have it otherwise was good fun to see happen. Then a little bit more about these sustainable golf facilities, these existing courses. So I'll just quickly whiz through a couple of examples before I finish up with questions and things. There is next month this initiative called Sustainable Golf. We've done it twice before, and there'll be a third one coming up in October, where we will basically dip into this group of highlights and start to really promote them on social media and in the news, and talk about from that collection who is doing what in sustainable golf. And we're going to theme it around community engagement this year. So just to kind of give people the heads up that that's happening, and sort of keep an eye out for that going out, because we'd like to include some examples in India if we could. So we'll theme it around sort of fostering nature. What have people done around that? So there's two examples in here. One, the first one was from a course called Hazen 9 Bridges, which is in Korea. They actually looked at their property, which was quite large, and they started to try to pencil in, just in an aerial photo, the areas around their site where they thought they could plant trees. And it started to feel like it was quite a lot, and they planted about 500 trees in 2021, which was part of their initiative to try to reforest and rewild their part of Korea that they had control over. It was part of their ESG commitments as a wider corporation, but it just started to show you how much space they really had if they really looked at it closely and started to plant these trees. And they found, air pollution reduced as a result of that, because that is an issue near that part of the world. And that was a drive around fostering nature, and that's doing well. 3 years in, and they've got little mini woodlands all over the place, which is pretty cool. Another one is like a smaller initiative. There's lots of bug hotels out there. If anyone doesn't know what they are, they're basically little structures that people build out of whatever they can to find, beetles and bugs and whatever they can live in them. This one was quite cool because they started to take stuff from the hotels and they were refitting bits of the building. So they were taking their waste essentially and started to build these little kind of bug hotels around the golf course, which I thought was quite sweet. And a real they made a little competition amongst the green staff, sort of who could build the best and the biggest. So they got a little bit out of hand. But it was good fun, and so it's just started to be a place where golfers are asking, what are those things, what is that, why are they doing that? And it's a chance, rather than to sort of try to say, oh, I'm sorry, we'll take it away, but just to try to educate the golfer a little bit, say, well, this is why we've done something. And they go, oh, okay, and they start to realize that there's more going on around the golf course than just what they scored on the last hole. Resources. This is an example from Sri Lanka where they were clearing some of their woodlands as part of a renovation program that they went through, and every single piece of timber that was coming down was then prepped and made ready for use in furniture around the golf course, fencing, posts, tee markers, all the usual stuff that we want. Whenever we feel ourselves reaching for a catalogue and ordering one of those things, we should really think, is there any way that someone can make this for me with stuff that I already have? Because that is so much better than having to go and buy stuff or import it in from anywhere else. And that's what they did at the Royal Colombo golf course in Sri Lanka. And it also means that material is from that place, the colour, it just fits a lot better into the landscape. It's not a kind of metal bin that was ordered from America. It's actually something that comes from your site, and that is so much nicer and better than something ordered off the internet. So not easier, but better. And then the other piece of the community, I chose this one because this is from the UAE. Jumeirah Golf Estates did a really nice job. They had a problem with the staff didn't care, and I know that education is part of that, and I was in Vietnam a couple of weeks ago, and we had a long conversation about trying to get staff engaged, and one of the things that they did at Jumeirah Golf Estates was just raise it was a lunchtime seminar, just bring the staff in, make them sit down and listen and talk a little bit about one small thing at a time, whether it's not chucking things all in one bin, or thinking if we can reuse something, whatever it might be. And they started to ask the kids from the local school to come in and bring other examples so that they could show them what other ideas that the youngsters had, and then put them on what do they call it? A go green wall, something like that, a green information wall. Put it up in the clubhouse so people could see some of the things that they were going to be trying to do. So that's just trying to farm ideas from other places and trying to get the staff a little bit more engaged if we can. I know it's not easy because it's not part of their real job that they need to deliver on, but it's something that actually, some people get good job satisfaction from as well, especially the younger workers. They want to be part of a business that's trying to do something like that. And the last piece of it was diversifying or moving away from fossil fuels as the only solution for how we power something like a golf cart. So this is a little bit of a unique one, the Jockey Club in Hong Kong, but they invested in solar panels on top of the golf carts. I'm not recommending that everyone does that, but it was amazing to see how much diesel that they ended up saving and how much energy costs reduced by having these kind of solar panels as integrated into their golf carts. So they were a carts-only golf course, so it was a big deal for them to make that jump. And then very last piece, because I feel like I'm running short on time a little bit. Why should we make a change is basically what we try to sort of sit down and think, what are the things coming at us that are going to mean that it's not going to be a choice to do something, or to at least start the process of thinking about how we might make the change. It's just as good. Increased pressure on land and natural resources. I think water and sand is the one that we talk most about. We need to find ways in which we can drive that down, use less water if we can, if that means less turf grass, if that means other ways of irrigating or sourcing water from other places. We need to start doing that pretty soon because it's coming quick. Government regulation, I honestly don't know in India how much that's affecting you yet, but in other parts of the world where we're working, we don't have access to products that we used to be able to use. We can't import certain turf that we used to be able to use. It's becoming more controlled and more regulated because the governments are under pressure to be seen to be doing something, and golf is an easy target for them, to be honest. The other piece I touched on in the community side is staffing and training, and trying to give our staff a sense of progression and learning and creating a good working culture. So all the ways in which we can do that will help, because recruiting staff is tough. Keeping hold of staff is much better than trying to find new staff, so we're trying to give them ways in which they can feel engaged. This might be a way in which they feel a bit more connected to trying to stay for a longer time and be part of a bigger journey. And the last one, which is kind of newer, is the financial industries now taking much more notice than ever of how we sort of account our profits. So it's not just about how much money we make, although obviously that's a key factor, but they also want to know now, what other things are we bringing? What other values can we tell people that we did as a golf course? What other things do we do beyond just making money for shareholders or whatever it might be? So these sort of CSR, these kind of reports are becoming more prevalent, and golf has a good story to tell in that, better than other businesses. We have a great green asset that we can leverage for that and tell a good story. We honestly don't do that well enough at the moment, but we can. And that is it for the talk. I think one thing to take away is that it's just to try to get started. It's just the way these things work. Don't feel like it's too much, it's too difficult. Even the smallest things, if you go on that highlights hub I told you and just start to scroll around and see some of the things people are doing, you're probably thinking we're already doing that. Or if we're not, we could easily be doing that. That is a big step towards making golf be seen as a leader and making an important difference for the sport. So I just encourage you to try and do that. Questions or
does anybody have any questions? I think as always it takes a little time for people to start warming up to ask questions. I have a question. Let me start. Now, I think one of the things what I took away from your presentation is there are two parts to it. One is a new golf course which is coming up. For them to look at sustainability as a theme is a different perspective altogether.
Yeah.
But what about existing golf courses? I know it has become very fashionable, ESG, boardroom talks to say we need to be sustainable. But if you were to leave us with one or two tips for people who have existing golf courses, where could the first step is the hardest. What is the simplest thing in your experience that you've seen which an existing golf course manager or a facility can start with? Something small but easily doable, but a big confidence booster.
I mean, well, yeah, that is a little tricky because it's so different in so many parts of the world. Kind of what? So the question that we tend to start with is, why are you thinking about doing this? Like, what is driving the fear or the thing that once you make the change? And so water is often a fear people have. We're going to run out of water, right? So then you might say to someone, how much did you use last year? No idea. Okay. They might not know. So the first thing that people can do is start to look at these key things that we're spending money on, that we're taking from the planet, water, sand, whatever it might be, and just try to get an understanding of, okay, what did we do last year? How much money did that cost us? And just that understanding of getting a better handle on more than just how many rounds we played and what the green fee is because those things that we need to feed the golf course, to water it, to grow it, to make it beautiful for people to come and play, like all those things are the foundations that, for me, the course is the most important thing on the property. And understanding what it takes to get that to the level where the golfers are going to be happy, like what did that cost us last year, is like step one. And then, if we know that, if we didn't, great to find out and get that system in place. And then start to figure out, right, why is it as high as it is? What things could we do? Why was it high here or there? Just try to get a bit more of an understanding of what we were using. And start to reduce. And honestly, how many times you mow the course, how many times you mow the fairways is a massive cost that you didn't realize. How many times you rake bunkers, that is a huge cost that people don't really think about. And those are the areas where you can really cut 20% in terms of fairway mowing time. It's a big saving overall in the end. And it's a big saving for the planet. You're using less diesel and so on and so forth. So those kind of like understanding and then making priorities, because nothing happens quickly in a golf club. You've got members sometimes, like in Delhi Golf Club, you've got thousands of members. There's a lot of opinions in the room, and there's committees and they change and so on. So having a foundation of understanding and then prioritizing step one, step two around how we make those changes, that's what we mean by making a small difference. That's just a massive start and big step forward. It doesn't need to be a new irrigation system or a whole new electric fleet of machines to be better.
Sam, you're talking about sand, and in a country like India and worldwide, sand is a very precious resource. It's also a depleting resource, and it also has got very negative footprints on the environment because the riverine systems are going on, floodplains are getting ravaged. In a new course, with all this USGA recommendations and architects like Vijit always recommending sand-based greens, what is the best way to reduce the consumption of sand while making new course and also during the maintenance of golf courses?
Yeah, so great question. And sand is kind of always been our easy answer to get out of the problem of poor soil or whatever it might be. And honestly, the USGA specification is sometimes followed too rigidly. It's too much to the letter. And I've been in meetings where people are literally shouting at each other about 0.01% of a sieve that they put sand through to get something past. And it's just like, that surely cannot be what's going to make or break a golf courses to that quality. So we are now currently doing a lot of research in warm season areas to try to find ways in which we can build greens which do not have the USGA specification, or they can use different sands that are more local. So we don't want to be trucking sand across the country when we've got something that's local. So one thing is to try to find someone that's willing to be a little bit more creative, to spend more time figuring out what you can do with what you've got locally, rather than someone that just sends you an email and says, here's the USGA spec, get that wherever you have to go. That is not a good starting point to go from. So that's the other thing. And then when you get into top dressing and maintenance and sand practice, one one of the reasons that was top dressed is because the grass is growing so much and it's building up organic matter and so on. That's because we're giving it too much nitrogen, we're giving it too much food, we're giving it too much water. Those are part of the problems of the practices that we've been used to over the years, because we've always had sand. But now suddenly sand is twice as much as it used to be. So what are we going to do? So we need to think of other ways, and there's plenty of agronomists and blogs and scientists out there that can be a good sounding board for ways in which we can reduce our reliance on top dressing practices. And bunker sand is another. Do we really need to have that exact sand to make it work, or is there a middle ground or a mix of one and two? That creativity is what we need to solve problems, and not just say we must have, or the USG expect or nothing. So there is definitely a move away from that if we can. It's the easy answer to say use sand. That's getting more expensive now. So
Sam, I have one question. Coming from a corporate background, most of the time you're talking of environment. When you're talking to the capitalist markets in US and all, is it now started to, is sustainability started to affect even the tournaments in terms of money and stuff like that? That sponsor.
So in the tournament space, where we've seen the most growth, we've doubled the team that are working on tournaments in the last year. We've signed an agreement with the PGA Tour to look at every single PGA Tour event. That reason for action in that space is not coming from golf, unfortunately. It's coming from Dow Chemicals, or it's coming from RBC, Royal Bank Canada, or it's coming from AT&T. Because those are big corporations that happen to sponsor what we think is a big golf event. It's quite a small piece of their overall portfolio of what they look after. And they have big pressures in their other parts of their business to be seen to be doing these things better. And then golf comes up as a red flag. It just does. They say, wait, nothing's happening at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. That's a bad thing. And they've said now that also because Liv is pressuring sponsor money to go up, and the PGA Tour is going back and saying, give us more money. They say, oh no, we're not going to give you any more money, and particularly because you don't have a sustainability strategy for your tournament. What is the legacy? What is the outreach? What is the community benefit from this tournament in that part of America? And so suddenly action has to happen. And honestly, 5 years ago, we didn't have a good handle on how much waste was getting generated by tournaments, whereas we do now. Waste management in Phoenix has been a big part of that. But it's these sponsors who are driving that change, and golf is reacting, which is not kind of what we want, but it's great to see that action is starting to happen, and it's showing you that pressure from outside coming into golf and making us make a change. So it's interesting to see.
So anybody else?
Yes, I like it. Thank you. Thank you. John, very nice presentation and making us aware of sustainable golf maintenance. Any idea to be sustainable must cover all aspects of economic, social, cultural, all practices, all aspects. The game of golf, which if I to put it across, it is also representative of the way the world economies are positioned. Right? With that as a background, because golf, they say, was introduced in India some 36 years before it was introduced in America. Now, where is America and where is India? What are your views with that sustainability? Do you have such messages for the developing countries or the least developed countries? What we term it as vernacular architecture versus sustainable development in golf courses?
Yeah, okay, great question. I think one of the things that we preach, from that point of view, is making sure that we are not doing a copy-paste job. So if we go to somewhere like India, Vietnam, or Thailand, or Korea, we do not want to try to copy a golf course that we see in Florida or that we see in Nebraska or whatever it might be. We are really, really pushing the developer to fall in love with the place where they've bought the land. and start to look at the people, the culture, the plants, all these things that they already have in the piece of land that they bought, and start to really celebrate that. And I think there has been a bit of a hesitation in the past, and also a propensity to maybe bring in a signature designer and to take a product that they sell in other parts of the world and try to bring it to your place. And that does have a place, that brings attention to a project. But then there's the next stage in that evolution of golf in that country has to be about celebrating the country that you're in. Because when I come travel to play, we talked about it earlier, you don't go and travel to play in different tennis courts, because the tennis courts are tennis courts, but you do go and travel to play in different golf courses. And one of the reasons is so that you can experience that place. People come to Scotland all the time so they can see this links golf that is, so famous for in Scotland. You want to create that affiliation in somewhere like India or somewhere like Thailand. So you go there and you know that you're playing an Indian golf course, and it has, Indian people, it has Indian plants, it has an atmosphere, it has the views, and it celebrates the place you're in. You haven't bulldozed the place to create a kind of Disneyland effect. So then we use that word authentic quite a lot to make sure that what we create is authentic to the place. And we'll say to the developer, encourage them to fall in love with the bit of land that they bought, because that's why they bought it, and this is going to be what makes it successful in the future is if we work with it. The idea of pushing water uphill, you just can't do it. So you need to be in love with the place that you bought and start to work with it and not enforce a style. And I think then it can grow. The other piece of the sort of market or the golf development in the developing countries is a little bit of that. Don't let everyone build a 6-star golf facility. You need some marquee facilities, but you also need the 9 holes and the accessibles, because we need to grow the game also from the grassroots. We need young players to come and play, not all just from one background. They need to be diverse. If we want to see an Indian golfer on the PGA Tour again and again, then we need to have more players in the game. And I think every country has a pride when they see that someone from their own country representing on the world stage. But you cannot do that by just building 6-star resorts. You need to have these various different tiers of golf courses and the different sizes, and that needs governments and public bodies to be involved as well, because they need to support that as a sport. And it's not easy, but that is kind of that public-private initiatives around golf, where you don't always build a big one, helps those countries to grow, and that's where we've seen most successful models happen. But it takes time.
I think Mr. Singha brought out the point what we can do for the existing golf courses, particularly in our area. I think there is nobody in India who does the kind of audit for these existing courses. We must create a body where they can advise them, do the audit, where they are lacking, where they can improve, how the community can help them. And that is very important. There comes after that your foundation certification. So we have got about 100 golf courses which are not very high-end golf courses. They need to be audited. And audit report should give them first level, second level, third level, as to how one can go up. They can't overnight become an international golf courses.
No.
So that must be looked after. I think Mr. Vijay with our present GCS&MAI, they should form a kind of a nucleus where they can go and help out these courses, and they can be made sustainable. Like I give an example, in the COVID, we didn't go out anywhere in 2 years from the house. So that is what you should think of. Like people, you said nitrogen, excess nitrogen. I think they should cut down the nitrogen. You start giving 50% nitrogen, let's see if the grass will die. Like when you play golf, you may get tired, not the subject. So we must try and do that. Every day watering is what it must be. Like you drink 5-6 liters of water, so reduce it. That kind of a thing should be brought and should be educated at a lower level to make it more sustainable.
Yeah, so I think that's anyone that didn't hear it, just that education and bringing up the skill sets and then the examples for the 100 golf courses or so that are top level and how they can do better. maintenance and greenkeeper skills is a big part of that. And so your idea about creating a central kind of expertise that could go and help would be a great initiative, a really good one. We would full-heartedly support that and try to help in any way we could. We have a framework, but it's very self-driven. We need golf courses and people to do it themselves. Your point is that if you give them a help, you hold their hand and start to move it, maybe it gives them the roadmap that they can start to improve themselves. But yeah, that's a great idea.
Yes, I'm Harish. We are talking of only 30-40% of golf courses in India when we are in such year. Most of the courses are governed by defense, or of defense or some government agency. And I have a fairly good idea, being golf secretary for FEMA, with Dehradun, that they used to water in the daytime when maximum sunlight is there. And I used to say every day you are wasting energy as well as water. Either you water in the morning or in the evening, so that water is retained. So if you look at, I have played in most of the army courses. The issue is that they don't understand anything about greenkeeping. They just put Ghasiara, urea, nitrogen. See, so something has to be done at a very high level so that they are sensitized for this. And it cannot be from the down. It can be top down, involving some environmental ministry or something like this. My viewers.
Yes. I mean, government pressure and government awareness of these things happening is something that we've seen happen successfully in other countries. We've never done anything like that in India. I don't know how it would work, but it's like a carrot stick type model, right? And if you bring the stick out and start to feed people, they have to change. But you want to give them a carrot as well. If they make the change, think of the benefits that they're going to get. But yeah, greenkeeper practices. I don't know about these courses, the military courses, but I think there's an education job that's needed to try to move our thinking past where we were 25 years ago, rather than continuing on the same program, starting to adapt, because weather patterns are changing, temperatures are changing. We need to be a little bit more clever than just following the rule book. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as it maybe used to be.
We talk about sustainability. We have to talk about solar. Are golf courses using more for solar energy globally? Any solution?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, solar panels are. I mean, you can run a maintenance facility on solar. You don't need to be connected to the main grid. We've seen that happening a lot already. It's getting more complicated because electric vehicles are coming in for maintenance of the mowing. So you tend to have to extend. So you've got more spaces that you can charge the vehicles. And doing it at night is cheaper than doing it at day, and other kinds of things like that. So there's a lot of models being worked out. Toro has a system where you can start to tell you how much energy you're using, how many solar panels you'll need to put up. You know, not everyone has the money for solar panels, to be honest. It's not cheap to put them up, but definitely right across Scandinavia, Germany, we're seeing almost every maintenance facility now start to put solar panels on its roof, and it's running all its lights. LED lights help as well, but they're running it all, so it's definitely happening. Also seen on lakes, people put solar panels on top of their lakes. It kind of like they can use that as a space that they can start to generate energy from. So it's happening for sure. It's just a matter of cost, and we don't like to just preach you have to spend money to be sustainable. Sometimes you just need to work harder to begin with, and if you make money, then you can invest in other things. So, but solar panels is an easy one.
Sam, this is a very layman sort of question that not really but in the long run, is the use of native grass and give on more costing, and would that or is that on the plate at some point? Because expensive grass for your flavors, expensive grass for the green, and you have native grasses that can get that. Is that on the cost utilized or thought about?
and teeing areas. Greens, no, I just haven't seen that. People expect the green, but the greens are just 1 hectare of the site, or whatever. It's not a big. So the big chunk where you can save is rough area or fairway, and we have found if you can get the source in the country of a good, clean, native grass, then it's possible. It isn't easier necessarily to do it, but it is cheaper, and it does. We've seen it do better in shade where it's shaded, so under trees and on those areas, the native grasses tend to do better than the Bermudas that we're used to using. So definitely, and there's plenty of scientists out there that are looking at that. For these courses that are trying to do it on a slightly smaller budget, and honestly be a bit more creative and less by the book, those are great projects. We've got one down in Benin, which is going to be the first course in West Africa, which is 100% native grasses from Benin in West Africa. Even on the greens, they're going to do it. It's a government project. It's the first one in the country. So we'll let you know how it goes. But it's budget driven, and honestly, the architects don't like me to say this too much, but the courses with the smallest budgets are the most sustainable, really, because you have to be sustainable if you don't have money to spend it. So they need to be doing it a bit cheaper. But yeah, it's just true. I mean, when necessity means you have to, and it's a great question, and yes is the answer. It's people are looking at that as a fallback choice if they don't want to spend the money.
Also, just maintaining the level of risk.
But it's already growing in the place, right? So we love that as an idea. It's just if you can get access to enough of it. It doesn't tend to be commercial, but sometimes the roadsides and the road verges is where we've seen some of the best grass, and it's thriving in pretty poor conditions. So yeah, it's definitely possible.
Maybe the last question.
There are tons of companies in today's era which are specializing in sustainability and the irrigation part and how to take care of the weeds. So do you think that partnering with such an organization, which is already an expert in this field, would fasten the process for a golf association also? Like, I understand that teaching them is definitely a great thing because then it becomes sustainable by themselves. But just to aggregate it, don't you think that they should partner with an agency or the company which is like already taking care of specific sustainability according to the agriculture?
Yeah, I mean, we need companies, in our industry to innovate and to try to think for us a little bit, because they're the ones that know how to make mowers and how to make irrigation heads and stuff. And so we have to listen to them, and we rely on them to make those leaps for us. And they test it. In agriculture is a place where a lot of GPS sprayers and the application of fertilizer and pesticide have meant we've benefited from agriculture saving money in those sectors. So we need that. And so bringing those people in to be able to speak and talk and share their innovations is super important, But from our background as a sort of non-profit foundation, we don't want to advocate for just if you spend you will be sustainable. So although as much as you need those cool innovations and the new irrigation systems and so on, there is actually so much more that you can do by time and thought and effort and creativity before you need to spend $500,000 on an irrigation system, whatever it might be. That will make a big leap for the course, but we don't want it to be the only answer that we've got, is basically what I'm saying. So they are super useful partners and we work with them all the time, but they are part of the solution, not the whole. It's not like a golden bullet,
This is not a question, actually, just an experience I want to share. In connection with the court case, actually, we had engaged a very eminent engineering institute with regard to the groundwater recharge. So we used to have a lot of recharge wells here. What we discovered during the investigation, the groundwater investigation, was that though the recharge was being well, the groundwater levels had improved. The problem was that the chemicals that we use, because golf course is they use a lot of chemicals, very chemical intensive for maintenance. We we found that a lot of the groundwater pollution was actually because of the chemicals that are used. So there are two things. Number one, we need to reduce our dependence on these chemicals. And number two, the golf course chemical industry also should find out ways to manufacture chemicals which are less polluting to the groundwater. Because we found that the groundwater here was quite polluted with different type of metals solely because of the chemicals that we used. That's just an observation.
No more questions?
Not for now. I don't think they're going to leave you. They're going to catch you with drinks. But,
I don't know.
all right,
Thanks. That was really good questions. I think it just shows people are really thinking and experiencing this already, and that's just exciting to me to think that we can actually, engage and do something and feel proud that we're making progress. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Thanks for. Thanks, Sam, for making the time and sparing this evening for us. I'm sure all of us found some of the discussions engaging, insightful, and I'm sure it will leave a mark, a question mark. We'll start to think differently, and I'm sure this is a paradigm shift, so it will take its own time. If you can just stay back for a second, can I just invite Amit, Arun sir, and Vijay here? A small token from all of us. Sam, thank you for. Thank you, sir. Okay. No, you can stay there. Sam, you can sit.
Good. You need a little bit of rest.
I also wanted to take this opportunity to thank our host club. Although Kohli had to rush at the last minute because of a personal exigency, but I thought this will also be a great time to give a memento to the greenkeeper, Mr. Anil Yadav. If you could please come and accept a small memento. The memento is. Sam, may I please request if you could join and discourse. Thank you so much. We also had a memento for Kohli sir, but since he's not there, maybe I'll request Jimmy to take that on his behalf. You will see him, I'm sure, in the morning. So. No picture for that. Thank you. All right. I now request Arun sir, Amit to compose a vote of thanks, and then let's hit the march. Thank you.
I think thanks are in order for having a very educative evening. Of course, we need to thank Sam Thomas, whose singular achievement has been that he has gone to the same college as our great Vijay Nandajan. But he also has some other achievements. He's the Director of Sustainability for Geo. He works, his foundation works with 3,000 golf courses. I think they are present in more than 30 countries. They also work with the biggest tournaments in the world, about 50 of them, PGA, European Tour, Asian Tour, everyone, 50 of them. Thank you, Sam. And I also would take, I'm very pleased to announce that Sam has also agreed to come back and visit us again whenever an opportunity comes in. Thank you, Sam, for that. I also thank Mr. Dibakar Sarkar, who, as Commissioner Sport, was instrumental in creating this facility and many other facilities. Thank you, sir. Murali and Anil, who are from this club, thank you very much for hosting us. Thank you everyone else who has come. Thank you Rahul Banerjee and Robin Bose, two people who have written a lot about golf and reported a lot about golf. I hope you'll be able to do some justice to Sam Thomas and Geo Foundation too. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for the industry partners who have always supported us. Last but not the least, thank you very much for our partners, Game of Life for Golf, Saman Sikka, Amit Kharbanda and Yuvraj Bhatia. Thank you very much. And I just saw the most handsome man in this hall, Digraj Singh. Thank you, Digraj, for coming in.
So just culminating on all the thanks. By the way, Sam just told me that yesterday was actually the Greenkeepers Thank You Day of the year. So I think thanks to all the Greenkeepers, because of which every day morning, even at 4:45, 5 o'clock, we are up and playing golf, the crazy group of golfers. So thank you on behalf of all of us for coming in. It was an evening event, early evening with traffic, but still it was great to see you all here. Thanks again to Sam for being here, and to Vijay and to Ikisa. And we hope to see you soon, and we keep holding more such events as spread the word about, as Saman said, sustain is the word, and that's what we want to do across the country now.
I just wanted to add something which Sam had mentioned in his talk. It's about having different tiers of golf courses and government conditions and etc. etc. There is a sad news just now, which I came to know just now. Madras Gymkhana Golf Club has been shut today. It is primarily because of some of the issues of water, and of course there are other multiple issues. So I think if we do not think about making golf sustainable, there will be more such incidents which will happen.
So Vijay just wants to say something before we declare the bar open.
Yes. I'll be quick. Obviously, everybody's waiting for the bar, including me. Quick announcement. We have senior members for the Noida Golf Club also. So I'm pleased to announce that we've signed the first deal with Geo Foundation. Noida Golf Course is undergoing a renovation redesign. That's one of the first certified Geo-certified golf course in the country. Very soon.
Now the most important
announcement, the bar is open, so please have a good evening. Thank you so much again.